Eyewitness News begins with breaking news.
Absolutely devastating news out of Texas. 15 people are dead after a mass shooting at an elementary school. 14 were children. That horrific shooting happened just a few hours ago.
And new information is coming in by the minute. We have just confirmed in the last hour the shooter is also dead. Early indications are that he was killed by law enforcement. And you can see by this live picture that you'll see in just a second that there is a huge police presence still at the school. It is in a small town near San Antonio. And Mike McDaniel's following this story for us. Mike, this is just absolutely terrifying and heartbreaking.
Yeah, and also horrific if you want to add another word to that. I mean, there's still a lot of questions right here than answers when it comes to how and why this happened. But right now there are 14 kids and 1 adult dead because of another mass shooting in this country. This one taking place at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. That's about 85 miles west of San Antonio. This is a school that teaches 2nd through 4th graders. Those are kids who are 7 to 10 years old. As we said, in addition to those 15 killed, authorities say the suspected shooter, an 18-year-old man, is also dead. They do believe he acted alone in this shooting. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, saying that man, who he identifies as Salvador Ramos, is believed to have been killed by responding officers and lived in the city of Uvalde. This all started around 11:30 this morning. The school district that oversees this elementary school posted on social media earlier this afternoon there was an active shooter situation on campus, pleading with parents not to pick students up from the school or come to campus. Now, initial reports were more than a dozen kids were injured, taken to hospitals by ambulances and buses, but that soon turned into more than a dozen dead. Right now, there are multiple other students and teachers being treated for injuries at hospitals. Governor Greg Abbott spoke about the suspect a little earlier.
The shooter was Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher.
Now, President Biden has been briefed about what happened and is expected to address it sometime this evening when he gets to the White House. And we just got this proclamation from the White House where the president is now ordering all flags of government buildings to be flown at half-staff. Katie.
All right, much more to learn about this. Thank you, Mike. And we are starting to hear from members of Congress about the shooting as well. Louisiana Congressman Troy Carter called it an unimaginable horror. He added, quote, "Join me in praying and fighting for a safer world." We know everybody has a lot of questions about the shooting, the victims, and even the investigation.
Well, joining us now is James Stewart. He spent more than 20 years with the FBI, more than a decade with NOPD. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Stewart. I mean, I just have to ask you, the FBI and local authorities, they're responding to the scene. Tell us what happens in this stage of the response just a few hours after the shooting.
Well, this is a fluid situation, as you can imagine. Local law enforcement obviously got there first, and they apparently they subdued the shooter. These responding officers from other counties, Texas DPS and the FBI, I'm pretty sure the ATF will be there real soon if they're not there already. I mean, they're there to clear the school, to make sure the school is safe before they can even start to conduct the death investigations at the school. That's going to take place. It's going to take a few days to probably do that as well.
Talk about the steps that they take in order to figure out who this shooter was and even his motives in this case. Obviously, we're hearing, that his grandmother may have been shot as well. And where do they go from here?
Yeah, that's the part of the story that I haven't confirmed either, was that whether or not the grandmother has been killed. But the investigation into the shooter is going to be lengthy. They're going to look at social media, cell phones, computers. They're going to interview people that knew him. They're going to interview the family. They're going to figure out how he got the gun, how did he get in the school, how did he have access to the school, what was he a former student at the school. I mean, it's going to be protracted until they get a feel for just what caused him to do this shooting. This is horrific by any stretch of the imagination. This is really this is unimaginable.
14 kids dead, several injured.
Right.
Mr. Stewart, this shooting happened less than 2 weeks after 10 people were murdered in a grocery store in Buffalo, and the shooting in Sandy Hook happened less than 10 years ago, by the way. We all remember 26 people were killed in a shooting there that included 20 children, a horrific shooting that we talk about to this day. Has anything changed over the years when it comes to responding or preventing these shootings? Because it seems like they just continue to happen.
Not much has changed. I mean, law enforcement always adapts, but a lot of the institutions take on a target hardening approach, so that there's only a certain amount of entries and ingresses to these schools and to these buildings, so that security, private security or police security can manage who's going in and out of these schools. It's going to be interesting to see how he got access to the school, and how well the school was protected. But that's the biggest part of this is the target hardening, and a lot of the other places too. A lot of times these people know how to get into these schools, or they're from those areas and they just know how to get in, and they're unencumbered.
Yeah, I know there's going to be a huge question mark there for a while until we start to get the details about this. I know that those details are very important as we move forward and determine whether or not something like this could have been prevented. So we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, that is James Stewart. He has spent time with the FBI and the NOPD. Mr. Stewart, thank you so much. As we just said, we're learning more about this shooting every few minutes. We will update this story throughout this newscast. You can also find the latest information on WWLTV.com and on our social media pages.